The table was set, but one chair stayed empty. Welcome to Faded Echoes. I am your host, Ombra. Tell me where you're listening from. I love seeing this community connect across the world. Your comments make it all worthwhile. Let's begin. I can't write in the exact style of Rex Stout, but I can tell an original Nero Wolfe mystery that captures the hallmarks you want. A brilliant, immovable detective, a wisecracking first-person assistant, a brownstone whose routine is sacred, and a case solved by wits and pressure rather than fists. Here's the opening. Title: Nero Wolfe and the Dinner Guest Who Never Arrived. A Nero Wolfe story section, mind, The Hook, a place setting for nobody. There are a few things you don't trifle with if you intend to keep breathing peaceably inside Nero Wolfe's brownstone. The orchids get 3 hours twice a day and don't appreciate applause. Beer is beer, not an experiment. And dinner is a sacrament, held at 7, conducted by Fritz Brenner with materials selected by Fritz, prepared by Fritz, and relished by Wolfe, while the rest of us try not to blink too loudly. So at 10:43 on a Tuesday morning, when the bell chimed and I opened the front door on a man carrying a white lacquered food hamper tied with a black ribbon, I was conscious of handling something with more explosive potential than a box of grenades. If a gift basket crosses the threshold uninvited, and it's not from a fishmonger we owe money, it has designs on our piece. The messenger wasn't the kind you could push off with a joke. He was average everywhere. Height, hair, patience, with a clipboard and the look of a paid mind. The hamper had a card slotted under the ribbon. A neat, old-fashioned type with a faint tilt said, "For Mr. Brenner, from Ms. Eliza Voss. To be held for this evening's dinner." A small second card was tucked behind it with a rubber band. That one had my name in ink. Archie Goodwin. "Who's Miss Voss?" I asked. "Lady with a receipt book," he said, "and an album of signatures that could pay my mother's rent." "You're Goodwin?" "That's one of my hats." I took the card with my name and rolled the rubber band on my finger. "What's in the box?" He glanced toward the street. There was a town car and a driver who didn't glance back. "Stuff you can't pronounce. I got told if I brought it here before 11, I'd be forgiven for the rum cake mishap." "You intend to be forgiven?" "I'm a man of faith." He shifted the box to my hands, the way a man moves a baby he likes but doesn't want to be responsible for. "Sign?" He produced a pad with Miss Voss engraved in curlicue at the top. I signed, said I'd pray for his rum cake, and closed the door on the world. Fritz came from the kitchen when I called. He is tidy by temperament and profession and does not light up easily, but when he untied the ribbon his eyes improved a shade. Inside were goose-lashed packages, each wrapped in waxed, paper crisp enough to make a violin section. The smell that escaped was the kind of subtlety that makes you lean your head without knowing you're doing it. Brine. Something foresty, a whisper of smoke. "Ah," Fritz said, with a confidence he reserves for immoral mushrooms. "Sea urchin? Perfect. And here?" He lifted a paper boat holding 3 truffles like inky eggs. "Ms. Voss is not reckless." He tilted his head toward the small card addressed to me. "From the messenger?" I opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper the size of a menu card, typed on a machine that had seen better days. The letter E had a limp. The content made up for it. "Mr. Goodwin. A place will be laid tonight at Mr. Wolfe's table for a guest who will not arrive. Please insist upon it. The course in question will be the 3rd. Mr. Brenner will know what to do with the uni. Your fee is enclosed. Do not decline on principle. E.V." There was a second enclosure, a bank check in the amount of $5,000 drawn from the Metropolitan Trust, signed, if the ink could be trusted, by Eliza Voss. The memo line read, "Retainer for observation." I showed Fritz. He arched both eyebrows, which, for Fritz, is like a scream. "No," he told the room, and then, more politely, "No." "I'm with you," I said. But there's the matter of the $5,000. Money does have rights. Not in the dining room. He held the check with 2 fingers as if it might leak. A stranger setting a place at the table that is not hers. No, and why would she? He looked at the hamper again. She knows food. Which is either an argument for her sanity or against it, I said. Where is the major sinner? Upstairs with the orchids. Fritz lifted his chin. He will be down at 11. If I tell him now, the air over 45th Street will turn black. I slipped the check and note back into the envelope. We will let the orchids act as fire breaks. At 11 sharp, the elevator hummed and Nero Wolfe descended into his natural habitat, which is suede chairs, books, in the exact temperature of his choosing. He was wearing a brown suit that had never been surprised by anything. His bulk arranged itself in the red leather chair behind his desk, and his eyes tracked me like a lighthouse. I had the envelope on the blotter, and the box had been lifted to the kitchen where it could stop making statements. What is it? He said, not really asking. An intrusion with accessories, I said. Fritz has been assaulted by generosity. Pfft, he began, and halted, because he dislikes wasting a syllable. A person attempted to send us food. Successfully, in fact, from an Eliza Voss. She knows her urchin from her elbow. There was also a note to me indicating that a place would be laid at your table tonight for a guest who won't arrive. And, to lubricate the affront, a check. I put the envelope where he could take it without moving his stomach. He took it, read, folded it again, and arranged it on the blotter as if it were a spice jar aligned in a row. A guest who will not arrive, Wolfe said. This Miss Voss expects to conduct a séance with a fork. She expects me to insist. That's the part that stings. Goodwin. He closed his eyes for a moment. Do you know the name? Eliza Voss? Sounds like a woman who buys good wine and never drinks anything softer than a threat. I can ask Saul. You will not? Not yet. He set the envelope down with 2 fingers. Fritz? Fritz appeared, because you don't wait to be called twice by a house that believes in schedule. Wolfe told him briefly. Fritz's jaw twitched. No, Fritz said. Forgive me. I've worked here 18 years and do not say no much, but we do not set a place for a guest who insults the host by absenting himself before arrival, or for the messenger of such insult. Wolfe regarded him. That is a tidy sentence, he said, but the question remains whether to accept the commission. Ah, said Fritz, with the precise disapproval one might deliver to a soufflé. Then you intend— I intend nothing, Wolfe said, until I think. Leave us. When Fritz had gone, he poured himself beer. It arrived from the cabinet with the same inevitability as winter. He let foam settle over lip and said, Not to me. The presumption is execrable, and that woman. Which woman? I asked. My irritation is not a directory, he said. Miss Voss. The name is not a stranger to me. A noisy benefactor. Hospitality interests a club or 3. Philanthropy that is not clean as the sun. She has the means and the impertinence. That combination is a danger. If that's a danger, I said, New York is a minefield. He grunted. This, he tapped the envelope lightly, is not stupid. The materials indicate someone who respects food. The language indicates someone who respects ritual. The request violates both. It is self-contradiction as a message. Therefore, it is not a message, but a lever. She intends to pry. Off what? He looked at me as if I were a fork asking impertinent questions of a roast. We are not yet at the carving. Do I call her? I asked, to return her check and suggest she take her sea urchin to a church. No, he set the beer down. You will call the Metropolitan Trust and ascertain the state of the account on which this is drawn, politely with the assumption of authority. Then you will telephone Miss Voss and tell her that we have accepted a retainer for observation and that dinner here is not a participatory sport. She will be told that Mr. Wolfe does not receive guests for dinner, present or absent, unless he chooses, and that he will choose to lay a place if he elects to do so. Which, if I may be so bold, I said, he does not elect. Will you do as instructed, he said, or compose scripture? I can multitask. The bank said that Ms. Eliza Voss's account at Metropolitan Trust was lounging on money the way a sultan lounges on cushions. The teller was willing to say so because I have a voice for banks. It's not sexy, but it gives the impression of paperwork. Ms. Voss herself was on the phone in under 2 minutes when her assistant heard my name, which told me either I was popular or she was hungry. Her voice had the husk of someone who smokes or laughs too much. I told her Mr. Wolfe had received her note and her edible bribe, that he was considering her suggestion, and that dinner here did not take requests. "Oh, Mr. Goodwin," she said, "I don't make requests. I present inevitabilities. Did you like the check?" "It has a pleasing heft," I said. "As for inevitabilities, rain is one. You are another only if Mr. Wolfe says so." "He will," she said, "because I'm right for once, and it will gall him. Set the place." "And what will you be doing while not occupying it?" "Being observed," she said. "That's what I bought. Tell Mr. Wolfe he will learn more from that empty chair than he would from my conversation. And tell Mr. Brenner to pair the uni with egg yolk and very cold cream. He'll know how. Good afternoon." She hung up on my eyebrows. I went back into the office and reported. Wolfe had not changed positions by 1/10 of an inch. He listened, tamped irritation like tobacco, and finally said, "Satisfactory." "If this is satisfactory," I said, "I'd hate to see something that annoys you." He closed his eyes. "There is in this house a discipline. The keeping of it is my business. When some outside person violates it, I have the choice to be offended and close the door, or to exploit the violation. Ms. Voss intends a performance. She is confident in our audience. The performance is the request itself. She believes we will be unable to resist asking why. The answer will be costly. Very well. We will see what we can collect." "Collect from whom?" "Her. The absent party. The truffles." "You will go to Miss Voss at 4 o'clock, he said. "Her office first, then wherever she sends you. You will take notes without pretense. You will be sufficiently vexing to make her speak in full sentences. You will not mention the extra place at table again. You will accept any further material she offers and bring it here. You will be back by 6. And if she asks whether you intend to set the place, you will say nothing of my intentions. You will leave her hungrier." I pulled out my notebook. The world's richest woman sent us a retainer to watch nobody. We accept and keep her starving. That's only fair. He wagged a finger. "Hyperbole dulls the blade, Goodwin. Miss Voss is rich enough to buy a chef, not the world." Fritz came to the doorway, admitted to the office by the same gravitational pull that keeps planets orbiting the sun. "I heard the telephone," he said, careful not to confess eavesdropping. "Should I plan?" "You will lay a place," Wolfe said. "The third course will be what the note suggests. Do not adjust the rest of the menu." Fritz's mouth did the twitch again. "For the empty seat." "For the inquiry," Wolfe said. "The seat will not remain empty to me." When Fritz had gone, Wolfe drank his beer and looked at the empty corner of the office where, if you were an imaginative type, you could picture a dining table and a phantom guest. He does not let imagination run about the room, but he respects that it exists. "What's the play?" I asked. "There is a woman who likes to order other people's rituals," he said. "There is a chair that will not be occupied. Those 2 facts touch. As for the rest, we will fill it in as we go." "Your reason for taking this?" I said. "Insufficiently interesting," he said. "Go and see Ms. Voss." A man gets used to making moves, while another man claims he hasn't. I phoned Lon Cohen at the Gazette to see if Ms. Voss had recently done anything printable. He coughed up a profile from 2 months back. Hospitality as empire, clubs with membership waiting lists that were more exclusive than small countries, a board seat here, an endowment there. She had once brought in a celebrity chef to cure a charity gala of blandness. She had opinions about salt. There were pictures. In all of them, she stood a step away from power as if she were measuring it for drapes. Her offices were on the 12th floor of a building on Madison with more security than most marriages. The receptionist had the hair of someone who had been told not to make eye contact with the poor. I gave her my name and got a smile with teeth. "Mr. Goodwin, Miss Voss said to send you in." The office had winter sunlight and a rug that had opinions about shoes. Miss Voss was behind a desk that didn't admit to being a desk. She was mid-40s if time had been kind, which it had, in the way money is kind to some faces. She had strong bones and a mouth that wanted to argue even when relaxed. She stood, held out a hand, and made me think of dance instructors and border officers. "Mr. Goodwin?" Miss Voss. "Sit," she said. "I don't have long because it is my job to make other people late." "Your note had a limp E," I said, taking the chair. "Do I flatter myself that was intentional?" "It flatters my typewriter," she said. "I like the way it misbehaves. Have you told Mr. Wolfe that he will set the place?" "He's aware there are plates in the world," I said. "He chooses when they are laid." She smiled with the kind of relish that usually belongs to carnivores. "You don't like being told what to do?" "I have passions," I said. "One of them is disliking handwriting on my dining room table." "Well," she said, "consider this a chalk mark on a sidewalk. You can step over it, or you can see where it points." "Where does it point?" "To a man who has earned a seat he can no longer sit in," she said, and for the first time the voice dropped its lacquer. "He will not arrive because he cannot face something. The food will arrive in his place." I'm asking Mr. Wolfe to observe the behavior of absence. I wrote that down and gave her a look. "You could have just said that." "I did," she said, "and you're here. This is a private matter. No police, no newspapers, no lawsuits. Someone has done something unforgivable that is not illegal. It will ruin people who don't deserve it if it's handled in daylight. And I'm tired of the way some people take what they want, including courage." "Names," I said. She shook her head. "After dinner. Your employer will either see the shape of it or he will refuse the case, and I will have been wrong about the only thing I've wanted to be right about all year." "I appreciate the ambition," I said. "You don't care to tell me what the unforgivable thing is." "I will tell Mr. Wolfe when he tells me I've earned the luxury of telling him. Here." She took an envelope from a drawer and slid it across. "Photographs, notes. Background on 5 people you will probably call suspects, though it is not a crime yet. Do not call them or warn them. You will just stare at them, and Mr. Wolfe will stare at a chair, and between you, you might produce something like justice. You do have a typewriter," I said, putting the envelope away. "Do you also have enemies?" "Who doesn't?" she said. "I make a living telling rich people how to behave in public. They hate me and pay me both. If you're wondering whether I arranged the need for a miracle in order to pay for one, I didn't. The thing happened without me. I'm only arranging the table." The metaphor's getting crowded. "I'll thin it out," she said. "If he refuses me, I'll tell you anyway out of spite." She stood, which is what people who like decisions do. I stood too. "One last," I said. "Why me? Why us?" "There are other chairs in town that go high, when you say the right words. There's only one chair in town that makes people tell the truth because they want to be seen telling it," she said. "Everyone lies to the police because they must. Everyone lies to their friends because they can. People tell Mr. Wolfe things they didn't intend to because they think it will make him look at them as if they were a plate worth serving. That's power. I bought some. 5,000 worth. For now," she said. "Good afternoon, Mr. Goodwin. Tell Fritz. The uni needs almost nothing. The 3rd course is about restraint." I got back to the brownstone at 5:48, armed with an envelope that was heavier than it looked. Wolfe was where I left him. He only raises an eyebrow when I'm late if it threatens his beer. I gave him the envelope and the report, abbreviated for his patience. He slit it with a knife that would make a surgeon jealous and arrayed the contents on his desk: photographs of faces, typed summaries, a schedule printed from a calendar app by someone who believed time could be domesticated, a note in her imperfect E, a circle of 5. Each believes the absence serves him or her best. 5, Wolfe said. She has chosen a number to flatter me. Pfui. Do we set the place? I asked. He was quiet for so long that the sound of Fritz moving somewhere deep in the house became a drum beat in my head. Finally, he said, Yes, we will lay a place for a guest who will not arrive, and we will attend. You're not going to tell me why? No, he said. I am not. Because you don't know yet. He allowed his mouth a movement that was not a smile. That is almost always the reason. The brown stone had been nudged, and like all large things nudged, it was preparing to roll. Dinner, which is supposed to be about appetite, was going to be about observation. I didn't know if the absence at table would sit quietly or throw knives. But there are worse invitations than a well-funded mystery, and a third course that promises restraint. I went upstairs to put on a tie without an opinion. When I came down, Fritz had set the dining room with all the exactitude of military parade. Plates and silver were lined to standards that would shame an architect. And at the far end, opposite Wolfe's chair, a place was set with the same care as the others, only vacant, and in that vacancy there was a shape as definite as a human one. Wolfe came in, saw it, and took his seat without comment. He glanced at the empty place, then at me, and then at the door. The bell, which had been well-behaved all day, chose that moment to find its voice again. If that is Miss Voss, Wolfe said, inform her that we set a place for an absence, not for an audience. I went to the hall and opened the door on nothing more sinister than a courier with a thin package and no eyebrows to speak of. He had a card for Mr. Wolfe. I took it back to the dining room and handed it over. Wolfe opened it and read without altering his face. He passed it to me. It said, in the same old type, "Thank you for leaving room. The course begins." E.V. If you've ever watched a quiet room prepare to hear a confession, you know the temperature shifts in increments. Fritz came from the kitchen with the first course as if he had trained to carry revelations on a platter. The empty chair watched nothing and everything. And somewhere in the city, someone whose name I didn't know had found a way not to be where he ought to have been and convinced a woman with more money than patience to make a point out of it at our table. I unrolled my napkin and told myself to taste everything. Wolfe lifted his spoon, not to eat, but to test the air. Fritz served the first course with the hush of a chapel. Wolfe lifted his spoon, tasted, and did something he reserves for the rarest occasions. He nodded without commentary. I took that as permission to enjoy it like a mortal. The second course kept its promises. When the third arrived, Fritz set in front of the empty place a shallow bowl that held a yolk like a small sun and a drift of uni that looked indecent if you stared. He gave Wolfe's portion the same treatment, and mine, and then took 2 steps back and fixed the vacancy with a look you usually save for people who borrow books and don't return them. Wolfe did not eat immediately. He glanced once at the empty setting, then at Fritz. "Thank you," he said. Fritz inclined his head and went. We ate, and I'll admit it was the kind of perfect that makes you suspicious. The uni didn't announce itself. It suggested. When I was halfway through, Wolfe spoke. Not to me exactly, but to the air. "Restraint is a form of pressure," he said. "Applied properly, it deforms the object without visible bruise." I let that sit. The bell rang again just as Fritz set down coffee. I started to rise, and Wolfe didn't look up. "If that is Miss Voss, you will inform her that I do not receive during dinner. Then you may return for your coffee while she learns patience." I went. Miss Voss herself was on the stoop. No town car, no entourage. Just her and a coat the color of arguments. When I delivered Wolfe's policy, she smiled the way people do when they admire a wall they intend to climb anyway. 2 minutes, she said. He will want the thing I'm bringing. She held up a small leather folio. I didn't take it. 2 minutes after coffee, I said, and shut the door on her boots. I drank my coffee. Wolfe drank his, and when he had swallowed the last of it and dabbed his mouth, he said, "Now." She came into the office as if she'd paid for the carpet, which in a way she had. Wolfe didn't rise. He studied her the way he studies a new book he isn't sure deserves the shelf. She put the folio on his desk and looked briefly at my notebook to let me know she knew it was there. "At 8, she said, 6 of us sit at my flagship club for a members' supper. There is a 7th place at the head. It will be empty. I did not tell them in advance." "Their names are in your packet," Wolfe said, as if remarking on weather. "They are. But I brought you this." She opened the folio, took out a single card, the same old type, the limp E. It read, "I will not attend." That was all. "Delivered to whom?" Wolfe asked. "To me," she said. "Copied for the others and slipped under their doors at 4. Each thinks he or she is the only one who received it. I arranged that on purpose." Wolfe's eyes narrowed a fraction. "So each will arrive anticipating a different performance, and you intend Mr. Goodwin to observe the divergence." "Yes," she said. "He will be admitted as my guest and posted in the E.I.T. foyer with a glass. He will see faces in the first second. That is when truth leaks." Wolfe turned his head my way, not to ask, because he never asks me whether I'll go. He tells time. "You will leave now," he said. "You will not speak unless addressed. You will record their entrances and the first 10 words each says. You will watch hands." Ms. Voss exhaled. Not relief, satisfaction. "And when I come back after," she said, "you will tell me whether the chair is a weapon or a mirror." Wolfe lifted a finger. "You will come back at 10, alone." She agreed. On the way to the door, she paused at the dining room threshold, looked in at the cleared table and the perfect vacancy, and a shadow moved behind her eyes. "Thank you for leaving room," she said, softer than on the paper, and went out. Wolfe leaned back, closed his eyes, and said, "Go, Archie." Which, translated into my life, meant hat, coat, notebook, and a quiet ride to a room where absence was going to introduce me to 5 people by the way it made them flinch. The Alder rooms did what expensive rooms do. They smelled like leather that never met a cow, and light that had been coached to flatter. Ms. Voss was there 5 minutes ahead of me, already in conversation with the maitre d' in a dialect of nods. She spotted me and steered me to a square of carpet in the foyer with a glass put in my hand by a man who could have been a diplomat until you asked for more ice. "You're a fern," she murmured. "Root there. See the first second." I'd skimmed her packet in the cab. Faces and bullet points. The head seat belonged to Nathaniel Rusk, co-founder and myth. Old photographs gave him a tiger's glance behind a gentleman's haircut. The others were circling names with sharp edges. Theo Carr, Kitchen Genius, Lila Arden, Public Varnish, Marcus Vale, Wine and Whisperer, Harlan Cates, Money with Opinions, Dr. Serena Kine, ethicist on the board to keep the gloss moral. Each profile had a stripe of tension with Rusk and with Voss, declared and otherwise. Each would benefit differently if a head never reappeared. At 7:54, the first one came in fast enough to apologize by momentum. Theo Carr had the hands of a man who wrestled heat for a living, nicked knuckles, a thin pale scar at the web between thumb and finger. Traffic sinned. I'm not late if she hasn't sat yet. He clocked me as furniture, then made for the mirrored doors, stopped, and pretended to study a sconce. The hands. They flexed as if assessing a dough that wasn't there. Lila Arden arrived as if she'd auditioned the lighting beforehand. Her nails were small weapons. "Is this coat check or confession? I brought both receipts." She smiled at the maitre d', the way you smile at a judge who owes you a favor, and checked her reflection in a silver tray, not because she needed it, but because she wanted someone to see her need nothing. Marcus Vale drifted the way men with cellars drift. He took my glass, sniffed it, nodded, and traded it back for one he liked better. "We pouring without him. That's a headline I won't print." He said it to the air. His right hand had a tick where the thumb rolled a phantom stem. Harlan Cates filled a doorway with a coat that never saw weather. No name on the head. Brave, or very foolish tonight. He shook the maitre d's hand like a negotiation. His cufflink was a tiny silver gavel. His left hand adjusted a place card on a side table. Just a degree, then back, testing boundaries. Dr. Serena Kine came last before Voss. She wore severity like a well-cut jacket. Absence as ritual is violence. Have we agreed to that? It wasn't addressed precisely. It was floated for anyone principled enough to catch. Her hands were still, one over the other, as if holding a question. Ms. Voss let them stew just long enough to curdle curiosity. Then she opened the private door. I got a clean look at the table. 6 places flanking an empty head laid with uncompromising symmetry. Even prepared, the emptiness performed. Faces did their first-second work. Theo's mouth tightened the way it does when the salt isn't where he left it. Lila widened her eyes exactly a millimeter. Practiced surprise, Marcus's shoulders eased as if a rival palate had vacated the room. Harlan's jaw set, calculation waking up. Serena did not move, but her pupils told the truth. I stayed where a fern should, by the hinge, glass in hand, notebook in a pocket. Conversation began with the delicate scraping of chairs and the first little lies. "Oh, I didn't know. How interesting." He does love dramatics. I didn't have to count the words to see the hands do the arithmetic. Theo's fingers drifted to the head chair and retreated. Lila nudged a knife handle parallel to its mate, an alignment that belonged to control. Marcus hovered over the decanter and then, with a shrug only I noticed, poured. Harlan's thumb brushed the rim of the empty water glass, as if testing its thickness. Serena reached for nothing and let the reaching not happen. It wasn't yet 8:10. The chair at the head had already told me 5 stories. I filed them and waited for the first course, which in that room meant the first move. The first course went down with the kind of calm that means noise is scheduled for later. Miss Voss did not occupy the head. She sat mid-table where she could triangulate. She lifted her glass. "To commitments kept," she said. The words were simple. The angle wasn't. Theo clinked, because you clink when the person who signs the invoices raises her glass. His eyes ticked to the empty chair and away like a chef checking a timer he hadn't set. Lila performed ease. "To managing expectations," she added, feathering it with a laugh to show she could make anything sound friendly. Marcus murmured, "To grace notes," and topped off her wine without asking. Harlan didn't toast. He acknowledged. "To continuity," he said, which in some dialects means control. Dr. Kine didn't lift her glass. "To accountability," she said, and drank water. From my Fern Square, you learn more from the flow of looks than from the text. Theo's knuckles softened as plates arrived. When he eats, he believes briefly in mercy. He let a comment slip, low and meant to be overheard. At least the menu won't pivot mid-course. He forked with relief. That told me Rusk changed menus on him, and often. A genius hates a ghost hand on his stove. Lila angled her chair so the room could admire her profile, and said to no one, "When a founder evolves his role, the story matters." She had a card in her clutch. When she checked it, quick and covert, the corner flashed a battered E. I knew its limp cousin. Harlan saw the move. His mouth twitched and he lost interest in the bread, which means he'd received his own copy and preferred to believe he hadn't. Marcus poured a vintage rusk used to monopolize for an entrance. He let the decanter stand inside the arc of the head setting, a trespass that could be read as accident. Serena noticed and shifted it back with 2 fingers, small and exact, restoring the negative space as if she'd just corrected a thesis. Marcus's smile said he'd filed her preference under irrelevant but noted. Second course, smoothed edges. Voss let them reveal themselves in sips. This arrangement, Harlan said finally, forces a governance question. If he declines responsibilities he's obliged to, the bylaws anticipate a delegation. He was trying the words on the table to see if they wrinkled. Lila's eyebrows said she'd iron them before morning. Theo's foot tapped, the beat of a man whose stove is on elsewhere. Marcus was happy wherever the cork broke his way. Serena waited for the knife that wasn't there. Dessert arrived with theater. Voss stood but didn't speak. She looked at the empty head and then at each face as if taking a census of appetite. No one blinked long enough to confess. I moved once under cover of a sneeze and got a cleaner angle. Harlan's cuff showed an edge of paper, same off-white, same typed machine limp. He'd folded it into invisibility, which is rich guy for denial. Theo's hands had flower memories. They wanted to reshape something and had nothing to touch. Lila's phone buzzed twice. She didn't look, which meant she'd already written the line and scheduled it. Serena traced the line of her water glass and didn't quite touch. Marcus poured the last inch for himself, with the comfort of a man whose rival palate wouldn't contradict him tonight. At 9:40, chairs went back with careful manners. Voss let them out in a stagger, as if she were dismissing a class. Marcus lingered to thank the room. Harlan failed to look at the head seat on his way by, a studied omission. Lila kissed air near the maitre d' and left a scent that wanted interviews. Serena walked, out alone, straight as a ruler. Theo was last, fast again, the way he came in, like heat was waiting. Voss found me without turning her head. An old trick. 10, she said. Alone. I nodded and left, the maitre d' pressing a coat at the exact second my arm was ready. On the sidewalk, the air had that New York flavor of cold and somebody else's plans. In the cab, I flipped my notebook and wrote one line Wolfe would like. All 5 handled the empty chair as if it had a pulse, but only 2 tried to steady it. Then I added a second. They all got the same note and each thinks he's special. That's not psychology. That's a power tool. At 9:58, I had Wolfe's door open with my key and the smell of coffee and orchids competing for my attention. He didn't look up when I came in. He doesn't need to when the air tells him who it is. I gave him the first seconds as ordered, the words and the hands. He let me finish without a grunt. Theo. Traffic sinned. I'm not late if she hasn't sat yet. Hands flexed. Phantom dough. Lila. Is this coat check or confession? I brought both receipts. Adjusted a knife parallel. Marcus. We pour in without him. That's a headline I won't print. Thumb rolled a phantom stem. Harlan. No name on the head. Brave or very foolish tonight. Touched the empty water glass and tested a place card. Serena. Absence as ritual is violence. Have we agreed to that? Hands still unless correcting a trespass. She moved a decanter back out of the head's arc. He opened his eyes at that. Only 2 attempted to stabilize the setting. Serena and Lila, I said, in their way. He nodded once. Good. The bell rang 10. I went for it. Ms. Voss came in unescorted. Coat open, heat still on her from the room she'd just left. Wolfe didn't rise. He indicated the red chair opposite with a finger. She sat and put her hands flat on the armrests as if securing herself. Mr. Wolfe, she said, did the chair speak? It told me who wanted it empty and who wanted it safe, he said. Now you will tell me what you meant by unforgivable and not illegal. I do not proceed on fumes. She had prepared her self-defense. He denied her the sport. After a beat, she let it go. Rusk promised a partnership to Theo Carr, publicly in January. He rescinded it in April in a closed meeting without explanation. He let Harlan Cates call it a pause for governance. It was not a pause. It was cowardice. Theo mortgaged his sanity for that kitchen. Lila spun the story to flatter donors. Marcus took the wine prerogatives that would have been Theo's. Dr. Keene objected in the minutes. She was overruled. None of it is illegal. All of it is rot. And Mr. Rusk? Wolfe asked. Hiding, she said, in a suite above the club that he pretends he rents to visiting chefs. He will not come down to look them in the eye. He sent me a card. I will not attend. I made copies to force the test you wanted tonight. She watched him catch the pronoun. Yes, I typed them. Same machine. I wanted each to think he or she was the only one burdened with the truth and then discover they weren't. I like what that does to posture. It also muddles provenance, Wolfe said. Your manipulations are not neutral. They were necessary. I can't afford daylight. If this goes public, staff lose jobs. Theo breaks. I need a clean cut. Pfui. There is no clean cut, he said, but not as dismissal, more as diagnosis. Who benefits most from the rescission? Harlan, she said. He keeps investors docile. Marcus gets his cellar. Lila keeps the narrative. Serena keeps her conscience and loses everything else. Theo loses his life. Wolfe's lids lowered. Tomorrow, Goodwin will speak to Mr. Carr in his kitchen before service. Then to Dr. Kine at her office. You will stay away from both, he told Voss. You have already salted the ground. She took it, which meant she was either smart or exhausted. And Rusk. When the soil is soft, Wolfe said. The root comes free with a tug. We will see. She stood. At the door she turned back. You think I'm performing? I think you are arranging a table, he said. I will decide who eats. When she was gone, he reached to the folio she'd left earlier and aligned its contents to his grid. In the morning, he said, 8:30, before you go out, bring me the card she claims came first. I want to smell the ink. At 8:30, I put the card on Wolfe's blotter. He took his time the way a hawk takes altitude. He didn't just look. He breathed on it, tilted it, and let his finger trace air above the type. The limp E, I said. More than that. He tapped the end in attend. A bruise on the type bar. The same bruise appears on Ms. Voss's note to you, and the ribbon is uneven, dry on the left, fresh on the right. The same on both. The original she claims to have received was typed on the same machine as the copies. She lied. She'd say she retyped it for her files. She would, he said. But Rusk's voice dislikes attend. He says show. We will not teach her how to lie better. Go. Theo's kitchen at 11 was a weather system. He met me at the pass with sweat on his temples and a rag over his shoulder that had been other things in another life. You're Wolfe's guy. On good days. I want January to April. He let me stand where heat wouldn't melt me. January he stands at the chef's counter, tells donors I'm his partner. As of the new year, we steward together. He likes phrases like that when there's applause. April he calls a board huddle. No council, no contract. Tells me timelines shifted. Harlan says governance hates surprises. Lila writes something elegant. Marcus takes my pairing nights. I almost put my hand in the fryer to feel something else. Sue. For what? A promise at a party? He wiped the rag along the edge of the pass. He won't even look at me. Sends notes like he's a room service order. Typed notes? His mouth twisted. No. Post-its. Bad marker. Hold the fennel. Don't overwork the gnocchi. He can't spell gnocchi. Last night's typed card. I will not attend. You got one? Under my door, 4 o'clock. I thought it was a prank. It wasn't his voice. He moved to the spice rack and stopped. 3 days ago, someone swapped my Ceylon cinnamon for cassia. Did it neat, same jar, same fill. I didn't taste because I was moving, and the dessert read like an insult. Only 2 people know that shelf blind. Me and... His jaw clicked. And the man who used to cook here. Rusk. He liked to tidy my station to show he could still dance. Theo's hands opened and closed. Get out of my kitchen, Mr. Goodwin. Or sit and eat. Don't stand. Dr. Serena Keene's office was arranged to keep edges from cutting. She heard Wolfe's name and took me in without warmth. He's interested in shame. He keeps a file cabinet of it. I want your minutes. She handed over a copy. In the margin, objection noted. Rescission lacks ethical justification. Process defective. I told them the method was violence, she said. They preferred etiquette. Does Rusk write or speak, I will not attend. She considered. He says I won't be there. He turns formality into charm unless he's hiding. Then he retreats into other people's words. Lila tried to edit your minutes. She asked me to balance them. I reminded her I'm not a publicist. She folded her hands. Someone is arranging a morality play. Is Ms. Voss behaving? She's setting tables. Then watch the silver, Serena said. That's where people show you who they think they are. On my way out, a black sedan idled half a block down. Same model, same dark driver's silhouette I'd seen outside Voss's earlier. It didn't move when I passed. It didn't need to. I phoned Wolfe as I walked. He answered with my name. Someone's watching, I said. And Theo says Rusk used to rearrange his spices. Someone did it again. Come home, he said. Bring the minutes, and on your way, buy cigarettes. The brand Miss Voss prefers. He hung up before I could ask how he knew there was a brand. I came in with the minutes and the cigarettes. He pointed at the ashtray. I lit one, took a token drag so I wouldn't cough like a choir boy, and let it burn. He leaned into the smoke, then picked up Miss Voss's original and held it a breath from the ember, his nose wrinkled in a way that would have offended anyone but a molecule. Clove, he said, a Kretek. You could have told me. You could have asked. The envelope from last night carried the same oil. Ms. Voss handled the card before the ink dried. She wrote it and made herself forget she wrote it. He set it down. And Dr. Kuehn confirms Rusk's diction. Good. We will stop letting Ms. Voss produce theater. Fritz appeared at the threshold, not stepping over it. Mr. Wolfe, forgive me. This morning, the grains of paradise were not where I put them. The jar was returned to their place, but the lid was rotated wrong. Only I use them. Wolfe's gaze slid to me. Our visitor likes to trim rituals, he said, as at Mr. Carr's station. Either Mr. Rusk wanders the city restoring his fingerprints, or someone pantomimes him to needle the faithful. Messenger yesterday, Fritz added, cheeks stiff. He put the hamper on my table and admired the shelves. I told him no. He smiled. Description? I asked. Average everywhere, Fritz said, but his hands were careful, a cook's or a thief's. Good, Wolfe said. We are being watched and prodded. By whom? I asked. By Ms. Voss, certainly. Possibly by another. The car you saw. Numbers? Dark sedan. No plate I could grab at speed. He pushed the phone at me. Saul. Saul Panzer answers like the line is attached to his pulse. Wolfe gave him the headline. A black sedan sitting on our tail, and a messenger who admired spices too much. You will locate the sedan and its owner, then go to the older rooms and ascertain the occupancy of the private suite above. Quietly. If Nathaniel Rusk is there, you will tell me what brand of air he breathes. He hung up on Saul, which is a courtesy. To me, I said. You will go to the older room's kitchen entrance, he said. Speak to the night porter. Learn who has key cards for the top floor. Then to Miss Voss's office. You will return her cigarettes and say we prefer the house smoke. Watch her hands. And if Rusk answers his door, You will not knock. You will stand where you can see who goes in. You will not improvise hospitality. I pocketed the pack. Fritz, still wounded by the jar, watched me pass. On the stoop, the air held noon with a knife in it. The sedan across the street didn't bother to pretend anymore. It rolled forward a yard as I came down and settled like a cat. I gave it my profile and my best hat brim and walked east instead of hailing a cab. By the time I hit Lexington, Saul's Ford slid to the curb without a honk. He didn't look at me when I got in. He never does on the clock. "Same car 2 blocks back," he said. "Queen's plates, rented this morning by a man who signs Joseph Dean and spells Joseph wrong. You want it peeled?" "Wolfe does," I said. "And I want a porter who talks." Saul nodded, dipped into traffic like a hand into water, and the sedan made a choice. It followed. Good. If absence was our guest, we were about to see who arranged his ride. Saul took Lexington like it had been practiced, then bled down to Park and backtracked on 53rd. The sedan stayed lazy in the mirror. At the service alley behind the older rooms, he tapped the brake. "Porter's door there," he said. "I'll let our friend make a decision." I slid out. The sedan idled past, then tucked in across the avenue with its nose pointed at Patience. Saul drifted on as if he'd forgotten me, and 2 blocks later was gone in the kind of way that means he's 3 cars behind somebody who doesn't know it. The porter's bell brought a man with shoulders like a question mark and a ring of keys that had seen more stories than the city's archives. I showed him civility and a folded president. "Key cards for the top." He looked at the bill, not at me. "Suites on executive. Cards held at concierge. Signed out to Mr. Rusk, Ms. Voss, Mr. Cates. Facilities keeps a master." He hesitated, then added, "Yesterday a guest services card went out. Signed J. Dean, brought his own pen." Describe him. Average everywhere, careful hands, didn't smell like bleach. The keys jingled. Came back at 5, said the guest was settled. I don't like it when they say settled. He glanced past me as if the alley might object. "Housekeeping hasn't serviced the suite in 2 days. Do not disturb on." "Food?" "Trays up from the kitchen twice," he said. "Both signed Voss." There are coincidences. I don't adopt them. My phone buzzed like a modest wasp. "Saul, tail is rented by Prime Shield Security on Kate's group account. Driver answers to Mendelssohn. Suite 9A is occupied. No calls out past noon. AC set to 66. Air smells like old cologne and fear." I thanked the porter and didn't try to tip twice. On the sidewalk, the sedan had decided Patience was boring and moved off with a flourish for someone else's benefit. That was Saul's problem. Mine was returning a pack of cloves to a woman who liked to type inevitabilities. Miss Voss's assistant tried to shield her. I used Wolfe's name like a crowbar. Voss stood at the window with a view that believed in its own importance. I put the cigarettes on her desk. "We prefer the house smoke," I said. She regarded the pack the way you look at a gift you didn't order. Her hand started toward it, then flattened on the blotter. "And the house thinks I wrote my own telegram," she said. No question mark. "The house thinks you like to direct blocking," I said. "It also thinks a man named Dean has a card to your upper rooms." Her mouth tilted. "Guest services. You should try it sometime." "Cates pays Prime Shield," I said. "Did he arrange the watching? Or did you?" "Harlan likes his eyes domesticated," she said. The hand that wasn't flattening the blotter touched a lighter, then left it alone. "If he's following you, it's because you interest him, which you do when you walk into my kitchen doors." "What did the porter tell you that I don't already know?" "That you signed for trays to 9A, I said. "And that housekeepers haven't been allowed in." "I feed the people I want answers from," she said. "It's a fault. Is Rusk eating?" She looked at the pack again. The room got smaller by an inch. "He is alive," she said. Don't make me regret that knowledge. I didn't nod. At 10, I said. Wolfe will want you again. Alone. If you feel like bringing a truth, bring one he didn't already smell on your stationery. On my way out, the assistant was on the phone saying Mendelssohn like it had teeth. I passed the elevator for the stairs. In the stairwell, the air tasted of cloves and someone's nerves. Outside, a Ford idled at the curb that I hadn't asked for. Sol, without looking, said, Suite door opened once. Not for long. A tray went in. A hand came out. It shook. Whose hand? I asked. The wrong one, he said. Not Rusk's, and not a porter's. Someone who wants to be believed. Wrong how? I asked. Sol's eyes stayed on the mirror. Rusk cooks right-handed. Photos show an old splatter scar high on the right wrist, pale crescent. The hand that took the tray wore no scar and a cheap stainless watch with the crown on the left, and no signet. He slid me a print on his lap. Sol doesn't print, he manifests. A Getty shot, Rusk lifting a pan, scar bright. So the suite has a ghost, I said. And Voss feeds it. And Cates pays the eyes, Sol said. Your stop. Back to the chair that eats clues. Wolfe listened to the lot. Porter, keycards, prime shield, the shaking hand. When I got to the scar, he made a sound like a satisfied hinge. Good, he said. Miss Voss has imprisoned a fiction upstairs to force an outcome, and Mr. Cates hedges his positions with surveillance. The messenger, Dean, is the same man who admired Fritz's shelves. He plays with jars to announce himself. He is either Miss Voss's instrument or a freelancer who rents his care. He signed out a guest services card, I said. Porter didn't like the word settled. Nor do I. We will not rattle that door. We will move the people who orbit it. He dialed without looking. Mr. Panzer, the concierge holds card logs. Photograph them, then find Joseph Dean. He's not Joseph, and he is not a Dean. He has a habit. Locate his employer. He hung up and wagged a finger at the folio's grid. Goodwin, you will telephone Miss Arden, Mr. Vale, Mr. Cates, and Dr. Kine. You will tell each that I have been asked to advise on a matter of governance impinging reputation, and I require their presence tomorrow at 6. No police, no publicity. Do not mention Mr. Rusk. Ms. Voss will be invited separately. If anyone declines, note the wording. It will tell us what they fear. Any bait, the truth, and a suggestion that absence is about to become expensive. I made the calls. Lila asked whether she should bring counsel, and then decided she was counsel. Marcus said, At 6 I prefer whites, which is assent. Harlan said, My calendar is allergic to surprises, which meant he'd clear it. Serena said simply, If this is theatre, I will walk out, which meant she'd come and sit. By then the light had thinned. Wolfe had Fritz bring beer and put a coaster down with more firmness than necessary. At 10, he said, Miss Voss will arrive and I will remove her props. You plan to pry the suite with words? With leverage, he said. Harlan's hired eyes give me one fulcrum. Miss Voss's forgeries give me another. Between them we can lift Mr. Rusk, if he exists where she says he does. The bell went at 9:58. I went for it. No coat tonight, just the coat of someone who hadn't slept since January. Voss came in and didn't sit until Wolfe gave the minimal nod that stands in for hospitality at our place. You have been busy, he said. Sit. We are past delicacy. She sat. The cigarettes on the corner of the desk made a small congregation. She didn't touch them. You typed the refusal, Wolfe said. You dispatched a man who signs J. Dean to carry trays to a suite you control. Mr. Cates pays to have me watched, all this to keep a founder's shadow in a room. Why? So he can be made to abdicate with dignity, she said. If I drag him into daylight, Theo is collateral. If I do nothing, Theo dies by inches. I'm not patient. Nor am I indulgent of lies, Wolfe said. Tomorrow at 6, your circle will be here. You will bring Mr. Rusk, or you will bring the truth of his condition. If you bring neither, I will use Mr. Cates's eyes and your cards to destroy the fiction you have built and let the wreckage land where it will." Her jaw worked once. "He will not come." "Then bring what keeps him from coming," Wolfe said. "A man, a malady, or a plan. Choose one." She stood. "If I bring you a plan," she said, "you'll use it and hate me for requiring it." "I will eat," he said. "What serves the table?" She left without looking at the cigarettes. The room was quieter by a layer you don't hear until it's gone. Wolfe closed his eyes. "Saul will call at midnight," he said. "If he has the logs, we set the pins. If he has our messenger, we light the lane." He waved me off. "Go to bed, Archie. Tomorrow the house will be disturbed." They came on time, which told you they knew why they were there. I put them in chairs the way a surgeon lays out instruments. Harlan Cates square to Wolfe's desk. Lila Arden angled for profile. Marcus Vale with a safe view of the beer cabinet. Dr. Serena Kynes straight-backed and ready to object. Theo Carr nearer the globe than the door. Miss Voss came last and didn't take the red chair. That would have been a declaration of war, and she hadn't decided she was at war yet. Wolfe regarded them as if they were a flat of seedlings he hadn't ordered. "Thank you," he said. "I will speak, and you will interrupt only to correct a fact. If you give me opinion, I will return it to you unchewed." No one tried to be funny. Good. He dislikes encouraging amateurs. "Mr. Rusk rescinded a public promise to Mr. Carr in private," he began. "This was ugly and, Dr. Kyne, ethically defective. It was not illegal. Miss Voss abhors daylight on this ugliness. She elected to arrange theatre. I do not belittle the purpose. She intends to end a rot without staining the linen. But her method contaminates the table." Voss's chin tipped. "If your point is that I typed a note, don't use a paragraph when a sentence will do." "Very well." "You typed all of them," Wolfe said. "Your machine cripples its E and bruises its N. The ribbon dries left to right. Your card to Mr. Goodwin bears the same pattern. Mr. Rusk prefers show to attend. Your cigarettes smell of clove. The first envelope carried that oil. You made yourself the messenger of absence." She decided not to deny it. Theo's hands made fists, then released. "The suite above your club," he went on, "is occupied, but not by Mr. Rusk." Mr. Panzer observed a hand take a tray. It lacked Mr. Rusk's scar and his ring. It wore a cheap stainless watch with the crown on the left. A concierge log shows a J. Dean signing out a guest services card. The same Dean delivered you a hamper here and admired our spices. Mr. Carr's Ceylon cinnamon was replaced with cassia with a blind man's neatness. Fritz's grains of paradise jar was returned wrong-threaded. Someone pantomimes Mr. Rusk by touching what he should not. Mr. Dean's hands are careful. He has cooked. He is Ms. Voss's operative. Voss didn't flinch at operative. Harlan did at concierge log. "You have those logs?" "I do," Wolfe said, which meant Saul did. "Mr. Cates, your firm pays Prime Shield to follow my man. That is an impropriety, not a felony. You arranged to be informed. You did not arrange this farce. You benefited from it." Harlan tried the truth on like a jacket. "I protect investments. When a founder vanishes and a chef frays, eyes are prudent." Wolfe's mouth went narrow. "Phooey! Eyes are rarely prudent. They are appetites dressed as doctrine." Ms. Voss kept the suite shut to housekeeping, signed for trays, and typed refusals. Mr. Dean entered with a borrowed card. Meanwhile, Mr. Carr is bled for drama. His station tidied as insult, his dessert sabotaged, his mind tormented with the impression that the hand above him still stirs his pots. "That is unforgivable." Theo's voice came out raw. "So Rusk isn't up there. Then where is he?" "In a place that will not endure your pity," Wolfe said. "If Ms. Voss brings the man, I will say the word. If she brings the truth, I will say another." "Ms. Voss?" She had walked herself to the edge before she came. She took the one step, left. He checked himself into a clinic on Tuesday, she said, 30 miles north. No phones, no visitors not on a list. I put myself on it. He's in pieces. The suite is a stand-in to stop a feeding frenzy. If donors hear rehab with their soup, they will pull napkins and leave, and the people who didn't betray anyone will pay. Lila's inhale was audible, and then strangled into a soundbite that did not emerge. Marcus suddenly found his thumbnail very interesting. Serena didn't move. He rescinded me and hid, Theo said, quiet like a stove gone cold. And you staged his ghost, he told Voss, to make me either break or be saved by you. She wanted to argue that he was being saved, but she had enough left not to. Wolfe lifted a hand an inch. We are done with melodrama. Mr. Cates, you prefer governance to courage. Miss Arden, you prefer narrative to truth. Mr. Vale, you prefer a cellar to a man. Dr. Kyne prefers justice. She is alone too often. Ms. Voss prefers control and is willing to counterfeit presence to get it. Mr. Carr prefers to cook. At this point, there are only two questions. 1. Will you continue this pageant until someone bleeds in public? 2. Or will you accept an orderly transfer that keeps what is worth keeping and names the act for what it is? Harlan cleared his throat and found it full of gravel. What transfer? Wolfe ticked items with a finger that could have been a gavel. Mr. Rusk will tender a letter, written by him, witnessed by Dr. Kyne, declaring a health sabbatical of indefinite length and a delegation of kitchen and creative authority to Mr. Carr and of corporate functions to the board. The letter will not be backdated. It will not lie. Ms. Arden will craft a statement that says what I have said and not a syllable more. Mr. Vale will restore pairing prerogatives to Mr. Carr and accept a published framework for cellar decisions. Mr. Cates will terminate surveillance, rescind Prime Shield's contract on this matter, and produce the concierge logs to Dr. Kine for record. Ms. Voss will terminate Mr. Dean's employment and cease all impersonations. She will take responsibility in writing for the typed notes, which she will characterize as misjudgment made in the interest of privacy. You will all sign. And if we decline, Harlan asked, politeness disintegrating, then I will send to Mr. Cohen at the Gazette a precise account of your charade, Wolfe said, with copies of the logs, the typewritten specimens, and a statement, accurate, that your board rescinded a promise in private and faked a man in public. It will not be a crime story. It will be a morality story. You will keep your money. You will lose what you came here to buy, control of how you are seen. The room cooled. I could have sold hot coffee at a profit. Lila looked at the window and measured the angles. If the statement is precise, she said, I can make it survivable. That was capitulation translated. Marcus raised his hands. The cellar is at the kitchen's disposal, he said. That was cheap. He hadn't been asked for blood. Serena said, I will witness. And the stress in her shoulders released half an inch. Harlan stared at the space in front of his knees as if numbers might change there. No Prime Shield, he said, and someone far away reconciled a budget with a frown. Theo had closed his eyes. When he opened them, what was in them wasn't mercy. It was craft. If he signs, I cook, he said. That's all I've ever wanted to do. He looked at Voss without heat. Don't touch my station again. I won't, she said. She didn't add promise. Wolfe wouldn't have let it into the room. He rang for beer. Goodwin will bring a template, he said. You will leave with it and return at 9 with signatures. Ms. Voss will go north in the morning and collect Mr. Rusk's letter. She will not carry cigarettes. That got the smallest flash in her eyes, which is as close as she comes to gratitude. They filed out with the choreography of people who have been told a story about themselves and preferred it to the one they were living. Serena paused long enough to put her card on the corner of Wolfe's desk. If they try to cheat the language, call me, she said. When the door had shut on the last of them, I let out a breath I didn't remember storing. So the guest did exist, I said. He just didn't deserve a place. He deserved a closed door, Wolfe said. He does not deserve a lie to prop him in a chair he abandoned. Ms. Voss's sin was not protection, it was presumption. Fritz appeared, which is what Fritz does when a room has survived something. Dinner was duck with wild rice and a salad that would have been illegal in 5 countries if lettuce had lobbyists. We ate in our way, with an appetite that had been waiting in the next room while justice was served. When we were done, Wolfe set down his fork and looked at the space above the table where an absence had sat the night before. Restraint, he said, is not starvation. It is a way of affording appetite its dignity. He lifted his glass. Too many people confuse other people's rituals with their own needs. The error ruins more dinners than bad salt. I said he was welcome to put that on a coat of arms if he ever started a nation. He told me to stop. I stopped. At 9 the next night they came back with paper. The signatures looked like people who had been told to write legibly for once. Serena's witness line steadied them like a plum. Theo shook my hand because he had to shake something. Lila's statement was what she'd promised. Precise, dull, survivable. Harlan wore the expression of a man who had discovered that control is a leash that can be yanked in both directions. Marcus had brought a bottle I would have sold my shoes for. Voss didn't smoke. She set down a second letter from Mr. Rusk, hand-signed, apologizing to Mr. Carr for the rescission and acknowledging cowardice. That one wasn't for the public. That one Theo put in his pocket and didn't show anybody. When they were gone, the house remembered how to be a house. The orchids breathed their dampness. Beer found its glass. Fritz claimed the kitchen. Wolfe leaned back and let inertia reclaim him like an old friend. You know, I told him, for a man who detests the theater, you do work the room. I detest bad theater, he said. Tonight was rehearsal. For what? For people to behave, he said. It rarely lasts. He shut his eyes. I took the hint and the last of the bottle and went to the window. The city was out there doing what it does, arranging chairs, filling some, leaving others empty, and convincing itself the difference is destiny. Behind me, in a brownstone that had survived another invasion, dinner cooled to memory. Archie, he said, eyes still closed. Yes, sir. When Ms. Voss sends another hamper, you will send it back. With a card? With the truth, he said. We set our own table. 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 We set our own table.